The first time I noticed her, really noticed her, it wasn't anything cinematic. No slow-motion moment, no dramatic music in the background. Just a Tuesday morning at the corner cafe, the kind of place where the hum of the espresso machine never really stops and chairs scrape across the floor like half-hearted arguments. I was half awake, scrolling through the same messages I'd been meaning to send but never did. Drafts sitting in my phone like ghosts, unsent texts to friends I hadn't seen in months, a half-written note to my mom that ended with, "Hope you're well," but never got sent. Loneliness doesn't hit like a storm. It sits in the room with you, quiet, waiting. She was at the counter, already ordering. Mid-40s, maybe older, though it was hard to tell. Something about the way she said her order, firm, but low, like she'd been here enough times to not need to look at the menu. The barista smiled at her like he already knew it by heart. I didn't mean to stare. But my eyes flicked to her hands, rings gone, just the faint outline where one might have been. She had this habit of tucking her hair behind her ear mid-sentence, like she didn't trust it to stay put. When it was my turn, the barista didn't even ask. "The usual?" I nodded. "Yeah. Thanks." She turned, a small smirk pulling at her mouth. "You've got a usual already? Must come here a lot." I hesitated, surprised she spoke to me. "Guess I do. Creature of habit, I guess." "Habit's not a bad thing," she said, picking up her cup. "At least it means you know what you like." Her voice wasn't flirtatious. Just matter of fact. But something in the way she said it landed heavier than it should have. We ended up at neighboring tables. Close enough that when she pulled out a book, the title caught my eye. One I'd read last year. I tried not to say anything, but it slipped out. "That's a good one." She looked up, eyebrows raised. "You've read it?" "Yeah. Twice, actually." "The ending sticks with you." Her mouth curved, not quite a smile, not quite not. "Don't ruin it for me." That was it. Nothing world-shaking. Just a few sentences. But the silence after carried weight, stretched out, like both of us were aware of it lingering. I pretended to scroll my phone again, thumb hovering over a blank message field. Instead of typing, I folded my napkin into uneven squares, eyes flicking back to her when I thought she wasn't looking. At one point, she did look up. Our eyes caught. Not long. Barely a second. But it felt like being found out, like she could see through the version of me sitting there pretending to be busy. She finished her coffee before me, sliding her chair back with a soft scrape. "Enjoy your book," she said, nodding at the screen I wasn't really reading. I nodded back too quickly. "Yeah. You too." She left, the bell above the door chiming. I should have gone back to my scrolling, back to the safe distance of silence. But instead, I noticed the barista drop something on the counter, a napkin, folded, with messy handwriting on it. My name. My number. Except it wasn't my handwriting. I stared at it, pulse ticking loud in my ears. And in the corner, in script just a little slanted, were 5 words I hadn't expected. "We don't mind sharing." I didn't text her. Not that night, not the next. The napkin with her handwriting stayed folded in my jacket pocket like something I wasn't supposed to touch. Every time my hand brushed against it, I thought about how strange it was that she noticed me at all. A week later, I saw her again. Same cafe, different time of day. She was by the window this time, a mug of tea in front of her, steam curling in the glass like it had nowhere better to go. I hesitated at the counter, coffee in hand, before walking over. "Mind if I?" She nodded to the chair opposite hers. "Go ahead." The silence between us wasn't heavy this time. Just present. Like both of us had already agreed not to fill it with small talk unless we had to. She glanced at me over the rim of her cup. "You didn't call." My throat tightened. "I wasn't sure if you actually wanted me to." Her mouth curved. "Fair enough." She set the cup down, tracing the edge of the saucer with her finger. "I don't usually do that. Leave my number." Guess I was curious. Curious. The word stuck. I wanted to ask what she meant, but instead I said, So, what made you? She leaned back, eyes flicking to the street outside. Divorce papers came through last year. I guess I've been learning how to sit with myself again. Sometimes it feels easier to sit with someone else, even if they're a stranger. Her honesty caught me off guard. Not dramatic, not self-pitying. Just flat, like she'd been carrying it long enough for it to lose its edge. I nodded, unsure what to do with the weight of it. I get that. I spend a lot of nights just thinking about calling people, but not actually doing it. She looked at me then, really looked, her eyes narrowing like she was reading between my words. Sounds lonely. The truth sat in my chest, uncomfortable but undeniable. We didn't talk much after that. Just sat. She shifted her chair slightly so it faced more toward me than the window. At one point, she reached into her bag, pulled out a pack of mints, and wordlessly slid one across the table. A small thing, but I felt it more than I should have. When we left, we ended up walking in the same direction. She carried a small paper bag, and when it slipped from her hand in the wind, I caught it before it hit the ground. She laughed, a quiet, surprised laugh, and touched my arm as she took it back. Her hand lingered. Just long enough to mean more than it should have. I don't know why that moment stayed with me, maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. The next time we met, it wasn't planned. Or maybe nothing between us ever really was. She was coming out of the grocery store just as I was going in. Paper bags tucked under one arm, hair falling out of place in the wind. She caught my eye, smiled, then hesitated, like she wasn't sure if smiling was the right thing to do. You live close? She asked. Next block over. She shifted the bags. Could you? I took one before she could finish. We walked side by side, the silence broken only by the crinkle of paper and the occasional car passing. It felt domestic in a way that scared me. Like we'd slipped into something we weren't supposed to. Her house was small, quiet. I followed her inside, setting the bag down on the counter. The place smelled faintly of tea and cedar. You want something to drink? She asked, already reaching for the kettle. I almost said no, but the way her back was turned, shoulders hunched like she didn't want to be left alone, made me nod. Sure. The kettle took forever to boil. She leaned against the counter, arms folded. My son used to help me carry those bags. Before he moved out. I blinked. The air shifted. She wasn't just telling me, she was warning me. Reminding both of us of the distance that existed, the one that wasn't just about age. You must miss him, I said quietly. She shrugged, but her eyes stayed on the floor. Some days. Other days I like the quiet. We drank our tea at her small kitchen table. I noticed the little things, paint chipped near the window frame, a clock that ticked too loudly, a magnet shaped like a lighthouse on the fridge. Details that lodged themselves in my chest because they felt too intimate to know. Halfway through, there was a knock at the door. A neighbor, older man, asking about her fence. She stepped outside for only a minute, but when she came back, her face had changed. Guarded again. We should finish up, she said, sitting down but not looking at me. I wanted to ask why. Instead, I traced the rim of my mug with my finger, watching steam fade. She wouldn't meet my eyes. The silence pressed heavier now. I caught myself imagining things I shouldn't. What it would feel like to reach across, touch her hand. What it would mean. She finally looked at me. Just one glance, brief but loaded, like we were standing at the edge of something neither of us had words for. Her lips parted slightly, then closed again. She stood, gathering our empty cups. I almost reached for her. Almost. The space between us was thin, fragile, and unbearably alive. But nothing happened. Not yet. It was late afternoon when I saw her again. She was sitting on the park bench near the corner where the trees leaned just enough to make it feel hidden. A paper bag beside her, half open with oranges spilling out. She didn't notice me at first. I sat down slowly, leaving a careful space between us. You shop a lot, I said, half a joke. She glanced over, lips pressed like she was holding something back. Or maybe I just forget things too often. The air felt heavier than it should have. Not in a bad way, just dense, like everything unsaid was filling it. For a while neither of us spoke. We just listened to the sound of kids in the distance, the squeak of swings, the low hum of traffic a block away. Finally she said, "My ex, he used to hate this park. Said it was too noisy, too messy." She smiled faintly, not at me, more at the memory. "I liked it for the opposite reason. Makes me feel less alone." Her words sat between us, fragile. I shifted, my hand brushing the bench close to hers. Not touching, but close. "I don't mind the noise." She turned to me then, eyes searching, steady. Too steady. "You shouldn't be here with me." The words stung, though her tone was soft, almost apologetic. "Why not?" I asked, though I already knew. She sighed, looked down at her hands. "Because people notice. Because I'm, twice your age. Because it's not simple." Her fingers toyed with the edge of the paper bag, skin pale against the brown paper. I wanted to tell her I didn't care. That the gap didn't feel like a gap when it was just the two of us sitting here, listening to the world go on without us. Instead, I said, "Do you think I'm here by accident?" The words hung too raw, too close to something I shouldn't have said. Her shoulders tensed, then softened. She didn't look at me, but her hands stilled on the bag. "You're young. You think wanting something means you should take it." I leaned forward slightly, my voice lower now. "And you don't want this?" Silence. Long enough that I thought she wouldn't answer. Long enough that my heart started to hammer against my ribs like it wanted out. Finally, she whispered, "I don't know what I want." That should have ended it. A line drawn. But the way she said it, slow, trembling, almost afraid, pulled me closer. Our shoulders nearly touched now. I could see the fine lines around her eyes, the way her breath caught before she exhaled. I wanted to close the space. She looked at me, really looked, as if testing how far I'd go. And then she asked, barely audible, more breath than words, "Would you regret it?" The question didn't need explaining. I had no answer. Not yet. The next week, she wasn't at the cafe. Or the park. Or anywhere I usually ran into her. At first, I told myself it didn't matter, that she didn't owe me her presence. But every time I passed the window seat where she liked to sit, the absence pressed harder. I tried not to count the days. I failed. On the 5th morning, I saw her across the street. She was with someone, an older woman, maybe her sister, maybe just a friend. She laughed, head tilted back, hair catching the light in a way I'd memorized. She looked lighter. Unreachable. I almost crossed over. Almost. But something in the way her hand lingered on the other woman's arm stopped me. It wasn't intimacy. Not like that. But it was enough to remind me that I wasn't her center. That night I typed out a message. Just her name. Then deleted it. Tried again. "Hope you're okay." Deleted that too. My phone screen lit the room long after I'd set it down, like it was waiting for me to finish the sentence I couldn't start. The silence stretched. When I finally saw her again, it was by accident. I was walking home from work, cutting through the side street by the library, when she stepped out of the building carrying a stack of books. She looked surprised, uncomfortable, even. "Oh," she said. Just that. No smile. I searched her face for a reason. Found nothing. "Haven't seen you around." She adjusted the books, eyes darting past me. "Been busy." Something in the way she said it was final, like a door closing. I wanted to ask if I'd done something wrong. If I'd pushed too close on that bench in the park, if the question she'd asked, "Would you regret it?" was one she wished she hadn't spoken. But I didn't. I just nodded. "Yeah." I figured. We stood there for a beat too long. Her hands tightened on the books, knuckles pale. Then she stepped back. "Take care, okay?" 2 words that sounded like goodbye. I walked home slower than usual, my chest hollow. Not broken. Not exactly. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused. Like life forgot to finish the sentence. That night, I opened my phone again. Typed, "I miss sitting with you." My thumb hovered over send. But I never pressed it. The message stayed there, glowing blue against the dark, waiting. Unsent.it happened on a rainy evening. Not planned, not even expected. I was carrying a bag of groceries, jacket damp, when I saw her standing under the overhang of her porch. She wasn't watching for me, but when our eyes met, she didn't look away. I hesitated. Could have kept walking. But I stopped. "You look wet," she said finally, nodding at the bag. Her voice was steady, but softer than usual. "Rain'll do that," I muttered, trying for humor, failing. She stepped aside, held the door open. Just a fraction. An invitation without the word. I followed, water dripping onto her floor, the smell of tea already in the air. The kitchen light was warm, small. She busied herself with the kettle, hands moving quickly, too quickly. I set my bag on the counter, searching for words and finding none. Finally, she spoke. "I thought it would be easier if I just pulled away." The words hung between us, sharp but fragile. I swallowed. "Was it?" Her hand stilled on the handle of the kettle. She didn't look at me. "No." The rain filled the silence, steady against the windows. My chest tightened. I wanted to move closer, but I stayed where I was, the distance both unbearable and necessary. "You're too young," she said at last, voice breaking just enough. "It feels selfish." "Wrong." I shook my head, though she wasn't looking. "It doesn't feel wrong to me. It feels like—" I stopped, catching myself before I said too much. "Like I can finally breathe when I'm with you." She turned then, eyes shining in the dim light. Not with tears, but with something harder to name. "Do you know what you'd be giving up?" The question hit deeper than I expected. Future normalcy, ease. Things I hadn't thought through. I wanted to say yes. I wanted to say it didn't matter. But instead I said quietly, "Maybe I don't know. But I'd rather not keep wondering." The kettle whistled, sharp and sudden, breaking the moment. She turned it off, poured the water, hands trembling slightly. When she handed me the cup, our fingers brushed. She didn't pull back this time. We stood there, not speaking, the heat of the tea warming my hands, the closeness of her presence warming something else entirely. She exhaled slowly, like letting go of something she'd held too long. "Okay. Just that." No promises, no explanations. I nodded, unable to hide the small, uneven smile tugging at my mouth. And for the first time, it didn't feel like silence between us. It felt like the beginning of an answer. Time didn't rush forward after that night. It didn't need to. We saw each other in small ways, passing on the sidewalk, standing in line at the cafe, sitting across from one another on the park bench. Nothing was spoken about what we were. Nothing had to be. It wasn't sudden, but I noticed the changes. She didn't avoid me anymore. She let the silences stretch without filling them. Sometimes she'd order my coffee along with her tea, sliding the cup toward me before I even reached the counter. The barista noticed, gave me a look once. I pretended not to see it. Her kitchen became familiar. The chipped paint near the window, the kettle's whistle at 8:47 a.m., the smell of cedar that clung to her bookshelves. I'd help carry her groceries in without asking. She'd hand me a mint without a word. There were no declarations. No lines drawn or broken. Just presence. One evening, we sat on that same park bench again. The kids had gone home, the swings creaked in the wind. She leaned back, eyes closed, the paper bag of oranges balanced on her lap like before. "Do you regret it?" she asked softly, echoing the question she'd once asked me. I didn't answer right away. I watched her hand resting lightly on the bag, the way her shoulders finally looked at ease. "No," I said. "Not once." She opened her eyes, studied me for a moment, then smiled, not the guarded kind I first knew, but one that reached the corners of her face. And that was it. No kiss. No rush. Just a smile that said we'd made it past the hardest part without breaking. Life didn't become perfect. She still had her quiet days. I still had nights where loneliness pressed close. But the difference was, neither of us sat with it alone anymore. Sometimes we'd meet at the cafe, our orders waiting. Sometimes it was her porch, steam rising from 2 cups of tea. Sometimes it was silence, shared on the same bench where everything started. Those small things became enough. More than enough. I think back to the first time I noticed her, just a Tuesday, just a folded napkin, just 5 unexpected words. We don't mind sharing. I didn't know then what she meant. I know now. It wasn't about sharing coffee or time. It was about sharing the weight of living. And somehow, that felt like love. Did this story stay with you? What kind of quiet, real love stories do you want to hear next?